Morning, Canada. Welcome back to another episode of Question Period. Today is June 2nd, 2025, and wow, things are changing. A lot of familiar faces in Question Period, a lot of not so familiar faces in Question Period. Very different vibe. All around, very, very different vibe, right? We're all waiting for Pierre Poilievre to make his reappearance in the House to bring back the momentum that we just so desperately need. But without Pierre, things are still going to be okay. We're going to make it work. We're going to make it work, ladies and gentlemen. Pierre is this much closer to getting his by-election actually pushed through, where he can then win his seat and get back in the House and do what he does best. There's a lot of criticism towards Pierre, even some coming from myself, where people are wondering, is Pierre, after what we saw, is Pierre still the best candidate for the Conservative Party? He's a phenomenal candidate. He was the best candidate to go up against Justin Trudeau. But that question is up for debate. Some people say yes, Pierre hands down 100%. Other people say, well, the Liberals are changing how they're going about things. Maybe the Conservatives need to do that as well. But I'd love to know your guys' thoughts and comments down below. Do you think that maybe the Conservatives should reevaluate their strategy, or do you think that 100%, without a doubt, Pierre is the person for the job? I think that we all just have a little bit of cabin fever. We're all just waiting for something new to happen. It feels still like there's a lingering sense of defeat from the election, rightfully so. I mean, that was catastrophic for what we wanted to happen. But I think as time goes on, as Pierre gets back in the House, we're going to go back to that sense of normalcy where Pierre is walking circles around the Liberals, where Pierre is throwing out these zingers, where Pierre is doing what he does best. Bring attention to Canadian politics to make it great again. So before we get into the live stream, I do want to encourage you all to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps with the growth of the channel, and it also helps with the growth of the live stream. We have a little bit of news to take a look at today first before we get into what's going on in the House. So we're going to start off. There was a First Minister's meeting today, which is kind of interesting. Carney sat down with a bunch of premiers, which is a little bit weird because some premiers, specifically you have Saskatchewan and Alberta, are kind of in line with separatism, with a referendum. Even though they haven't come out and said we support the referendum, it's actually been quite the opposite. They're the only premiers outside of Quebec that are saying, well, if this is what the people want, then this is what the people are going to get. So make with that what you will. But I stand firm on what I said in a previous video on my main channel on Mr. Sunshine, that this separatism movement is only going to happen from a grassroots perspective. It's going to be a citizens movement. You're not going to get any politician that's going to back it because everybody is afraid of losing their seat, of losing power, of, you know, running off of a pension instead of their full salary. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird that the only province in this country that actually has politicians and the premier that stand by a referendum or separating is Quebec. Like, isn't that weird that the Quebec people are just so patriotic that they're saying, yeah, I mean, if our politicians say we can separate, then we're going to separate. Absolutely. They just don't care. And I'm wondering if Alberta will ever make that leap, because obviously there's a lot of momentum for the citizens who want to leave, but will the politicians be able to carry that weight as well? We're going to have to wait and see. But we do have a couple things to start the day off with, specifically starting off with Canada Post. Canada Post rejects union's arbitration request. Go figure, huh?
New developments as we begin this week in the Canada Post contract dispute. Management, the company, the Crown Corporation, has rejected the latest request from the Union of Postal Workers to go to binding arbitration. Canada Post instead wants the union to send its latest offer directly to union membership for a vote. So Scott, once again, going to be tracking the toing and froing for us today.
It certainly is that. And both sides are calling for some sort of federal intervention, but for entirely different reasons, and this sort of takes this fight to a new level. And we're hearing from Canada Post has submitted what they called their final offer last week to the 55,000 postal workers, the CUPW, calling it their final offer. That included a signing bonus, a 14% pay hike over the next 4 years, but also they wanted to staff part-time workers on the weekend, a major sticking point between the two. At the same time, the CUPW was calling for their negotiations to a binding arbitration, saying that the process has gone on for too long with no results. Here's a bit of a statement coming out last night from the union saying a forced vote may fail to end the labor conflict and risks further division, prolonging uncertainty for all parties. Arbitration would end the labor dispute immediately and create certainty for all Canadians. But management at Canada Post saying that arbitration would take too long. It would take over a year, perhaps 18 months. And because of that, their precarious financial situation, it would be too long, and they wanted to resolve this issue a lot quicker than that. So to that end, Canada Post wants Jobs Minister Patty Hajdu to intervene and force a vote to the membership, bypassing the union itself. And CUPW has been in a strike position since last week. They were on a 32-day strike last November, so lots of eyes watching this, and now it's gone from an economic concern to perhaps a political concern, and we'll see that later today.
Okay, we'll be bringing updates, of course, as we get new information.
A political concern, eh? Oh my freaking goodness, man. It feels like Canada Post has just lost the confidence from the country. I mean, they are a sinking ship, and it sounds bad because I obviously don't want Canadians to lose any jobs, but at what point are we going to do what's best for Canadians? It's already been proven that Canada Post is causing a $1 billion deficit per year. They are losing $1 billion every single year. I mean, that is absurd. And they're taxpayer subsidized, right? That's coming from literally us. Our taxpayer money is going towards Canada Post to keep them in operation, even though they're losing $1 billion a year. That's insane. And so something needs to happen, either privatize Canada Post or stop subsidizing it. But yeah, man, it's just not good. It's just not good. By the way, people that ordered stickers, if you are having difficulty with getting your shipments through the mail, I use Canada Post. So just send me an email if you haven't yet received any of your merch yet, and we will sort it out there. Freaking Canada Post, man. Come on, getting in the way of the merch. What are they doing? Now we're going to take a look here at the First Minister's meeting. This is a pretty big deal because there's a tremendous amount of rhetoric right now around referendum that Carney's just sitting down and squashing beef or trying to squash any potential kind of referendum talk directly with the premiers all under one roof. It's kind of a big deal for him to do that right out the gate the way he is. I'll be objective about this. The fact that he's wasting no time as the new prime minister, I mean, I'm not saying it's great of him, but he's not wasting any time. Pierre would have done it yesterday, though, not today. I'm just saying. Pierre would have done it quicker. Let's take a look.
I have not seen his heat. Hey, Dom. Good to see you, my friend. And Minister Hodgson as well is here. Thank you very much for joining us. And I want to welcome all of my colleagues, premiers around the table. Some new faces around the table for us, but many of them, and in particular Doug and Francois, we've been sitting around the table for a long time. Some of our constituents might say far too long, but I would disagree with them. But thank you and welcome everyone here today. Just a quick note, and I think Wab and increasingly Danielle would share our concerns, and everyone would provide our best wishes and our thoughts with the firefighters and all of those that are defending their communities throughout the northern prairie provinces right now. And I think what is happening with respect to how we are sharing resources across this nation, how we are sharing wildfire resources, whether it be the tankers that we have, the firefighters that we have, the military has come in and evacuated a couple of communities that were cut off. how everyone has come together, whether it be tankers coming from Quebec, resources from Nova Scotia, British Columbia, the Northwest Territories has provided resources, and a couple of years ago it was the tables were turned where the challenge was very much in the territories. Yukon, New Brunswick, as well as Alaska, Oregon, and Arizona are providing resources into Western Canada as well, which I think speaks to a broader relationship that we're all collectively working on as well. Many others around this table are consistently reaching out to the three of us to offer resources, and for that we're very grateful. And I think when we look back over the last 5 years or so, we have been able to provide those resources to other jurisdictions, and it's that ability for us to really be more than a sum of our parts in Canada that is the approach that I would hope each of us takes to these meetings here today. The Prime Minister has set out goals for us as Canadians to collaboratively work on.
Yeah, let's put some W's down in the chat for the firefighters, man. What they are doing, I mean, not just every year, but specifically this year, is absolutely incredible. And they deserve, I mean, just to be supported beyond belief. They are dealing with lack of resources. They're dealing with government and political mismanagement. And then they're also putting their lives on the line to fight these incredibly large fires. It's really heroes. Firefighters right now are heroes in Canada. All first responders, the entire teams, aside from the politicians that are affiliated with fighting the fires right now and evacuating people, the emergency response, everyone that's involved to any capacity, man, shout out to all of you. Like, put some W's down in the chat for that, man, because that's some real freaking hard work what they're doing.
For us to have the strongest economy in the G7 nation, for us as Canadians and as a country of Canada to become a global energy superpower. And I think when we look at the collaboration in which we come together to protect our communities, our homes, and our families across this nation, year in, year out, if we approach this conversation today and for the weeks and months and years ahead, in building towards those goals of strengthening that economy so it is leading the G7, strengthening our opportunity and providing an opportunity for us as Canadians to become a global energy superpower. Canadians will be well served by the work that we collectively are doing here today. And so to my premiers, 13, myself and 12 others, that collectively do represent all Canadians. And to our Prime Minister and our federal ministers that are here, I welcome you. I thank you for bringing this meeting together here today, Prime Minister. I think it is truly an opportunity that lies at the feet of not only the federal government, but each of us as subnational leaders to unite this nation and to really seize the opportunity that I see before us as Canadians. So thank you.
One heck of an intro.
Thank you very much, Premier. I said this last night. I'm going to make a habit of it. I'd like to just follow you all the time in making remarks, because I just want to reinforce everything the Premier just said. It's absolutely correct. And
I might have to form a new party.
Yes, that's true. There maybe not every single time, but on issues of nation building and cooperation, without question. Thank you for the great.
I will say, man, I know this is going to be unpopular to my audience, but I will say that the relationship that Carney seems to have with the premiers is significantly better than the relationship that Justin Trudeau had. By no means is this me blowing smoke up Carney's butt and saying, hey, he's doing a great job. By no means. He still has to prove himself, right? And he does carry baggage, even though it's not 30 freaking years of political baggage the way Justin Trudeau brought to the table. He still has to prove himself. He carries significant baggage. But all that being said, man, you can see the way that he's talking with other premiers. He's not as aggressively toxic as what Justin Trudeau was. And it's refreshing to shift away from the left and move a little bit more towards the center. I know he carries a whole bunch of stuff, the Century Initiative, blah, 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 blah. Then who cares about that right now in this point? The point I'm trying to make is we're not dealing with a drama teacher princess anymore, which is actually a breath of fresh air. I ain't saying Carney's the man for the job. He's got the job. He's got to prove himself. But yeah, it's nice. It's nice to shift away from Trudeau. It's not the team that I would have wanted to win, but it's nice to shift away from Trudeau. Have we even acknowledged that, by the way? Has everyone even fully processed the fact that we don't have Justin Trudeau representing us anymore? Like the election came, it happened, we lost, we feel defeated. But seeing Carney do these talks with premiers and actually represent Canada, look, I know chances you're watching this, you don't like the guy, but have you even processed the fact that we don't have Trudeau anymore? Like, that feels good. That feels really good. I know there's, the whole rhetoric of Carney could be worse, but whatever. At least it's not Trudeau anymore. It's not as bad as Trudeau.
Saskatchewan hospitality on very short notice. It was really only a month ago that we spoke and struck the date for this meeting, and under challenging circumstances. And just reiterate the Northern Prairie provinces, the challenges of the wildfires that are raging, and the cooperation that we're seeing across the provinces, across Canada. Volunteers, the Canadian Armed Forces, help from some of the Americans as well. 30,000 evacuees, and bravery and charity, the best of Canada being shown. 40 years ago was the last time there was a First Minister meeting in the province of Saskatchewan. It was in Regina then. Prime Minister Mulroney had convened it. One of the conclusions of the meeting was that they should meet again. Always a little suspect, and here we are. The conclusion was they First Ministers should meet on an annual basis. Certainly more than exceeded that, and I think it's a testament that both for First Ministers, but very importantly, supplemented, if not superseded, by the Council of the Federation and your leadership, Doug, bringing together the provinces to help build this country. Back in 1985, it was the run-up to what would then be the free trade agreement with the United States, and a long process of integration that brought great prosperity to both our nations, culminating in the best trade deal ever. As someone once called it. Some call it USMCA, we call it CUSMA. But that situation, as we all know, has changed. We're in the process of redefining our relationship with the United States. That's ongoing. Mr. LeBlanc and others leading those discussions, but working very much in partnership around this table in terms of our priorities and how we're defining it. But also taking matters very much into our own hands, parce que nous sommes maîtres chez nous. Nous pouvons contrôler notre destin économique, notre destin de sécurité. And that's what this meeting is about, building a stronger Canadian.
Je parle un petit peu de français. D'abord, je suis bilingual. There you go. That's what he did. That's what he did. He said 2 words in French. He said 2 words in French to check the quota. That's hilarious.
Canadian economy, building one Canadian economy, and I really want to salute the leadership around this table. I can't keep up with the flurry of announcements of free trade agreements between provinces and across the country. The federal government will do its part, tabling legislation very shortly to eliminate federal barriers to interprovincial movement of goods and people, and also to put in place an ability to advance projects of national interest. And again, we have seen the leadership around this table of developing truly nation-building projects. And this is just the start. This is just the start. And it's what Canadians expect and what they deserve.
I hate the fact that these politicians are now all jumping on board with the intra-provincial trade barriers. It's like it's the new hot chick at the bar. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, I want to talk about it. I want to go talk to her. The Liberal government had, and this is where the criticism towards our government plays a factor, right? Carney wasn't the prime minister. He wasn't a politician at this time. But all of his MPs were, most of them, especially his cabinet. During the COOF, it was a global health emergency. We had one here in Canada. It was a health emergency. And we had a real opportunity to break down intraprovincial trade barriers through services, right? When people think of intraprovincial trade barriers, they're thinking of goods like liquor, oil and gas, lumber, whatever it is. Yeah, that's a key role in solving a lot of our problems in Canada. but it's also our services, such as our healthcare workers. If you get accredited in British Columbia, let's say, as a nurse, it's very difficult to then just move to Ontario and be a nurse there. You have to go through requalifications. You have to pay money to a board to stay certified every year just because you're working in a different province. It's absurd. It's insane. And that doesn't even include the people that are coming into Canada, let's say from America, 20-year nurses, right? Or paramedics or whatever, that their credentials aren't recognized in Canada. So they have to basically either go back to school or go through a whole bunch of hooplas to then continue working here. That was the best opportunity during the COOF to break down interprovincial trade barrier services and say, you know what, we're just going to expedite a Red Seal type of certification for healthcare workers because this is a healthcare thing that's going on. They didn't do it. They didn't do it. That would have been the best time. And I hate to be stuck in the past because I don't want to be dwelling on this forever, but why weren't they saying it then? Why are they only saying it now, right? Even the Conservatives have only been saying it for like a couple of years. Nobody was saying it in 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. Nobody was saying it then. Maybe they were, but it wasn't as popular as what it is now. And I could be corrected easily down below in the chat if anyone has noticed any politicians on either sides in Canada been saying this specific thing for that long. But it just pisses me off a little bit because it's the new hot topic in Canada. Oh, you're solving interprovincial trade barriers. You're the hero. And it's like they had the opportunity to do it. What's different from then to now? That was the best time because it was an actual healthcare emergency. They could have easily just swiped their emergency powers and done it. Just shit like that about politics really pisses me off. People wait for the best, most opportune time where people are desperate for something, and that's when they deliver. Not when people actually need something, right? It's like watching somebody drown until they are almost dead, and then you save them. You better thank me. You better thank me. That's just what politics feels like sometimes, especially with the Liberals.
En mars, à notre première rencontre, nous avons décidé le commerce et la mobilité. The coming weeks and months will be critical, really, to turn the momentum that's been created by you around this table, that the federal government is looking to add to translate that momentum, those ideas into action. But I'm very confident with the experience, the expertise, the goodwill, and the support of Canadians that we will do just that, including through the leadership of the Council of the Federation. And with that, I will turn to Premier Ford.
That's great. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Prime Minister.
Oh, I'm going to get in trouble for this. But up next is the fat pig with rabies mentality for trying to start an economic war with America by threatening to cut off the power to 1.3, 1.4 million homes. Go F yourself, buddy. Go F yourself. And screw all the media for reporting on me, and David Eby, who I fully endorse, by the way, for saying that I'm a right-wing extremist for calling out the fat pig with rabies mentality. Don't forget the mentality part. Mentality. For wanting to do that.
For bringing us all together, and I want to thank you, Scott, for hosting us. What a great host. We've had great discussions since last night, and we'll have further discussions how we can be more resilient country and coming together. I always say united we stand, divided we fall. We're going to have great discussions.
Like a pig in the mud, you run and you crawl.
I know Canadians want hope, they want prosperity, they want opportunity, and I feel if everyone cooperates and collaborates, we're going to make that happen. We'll make it happen, as you were saying, Scott. We will be a superpower when it comes to energy of all forms, and that's our goal today, to make sure that we have large national infrastructure projects that will benefit every Canadian from coast to coast to coast. And again, I just want to thank everyone for joining us. I look forward to having you in July over to Ontario and get a couple cigars ready, Dom, because you took off from us last night. But we look forward to hosting you there. And thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Yeah, when you compare what Scott Moe from Saskatchewan said to what Doug Ford said, it's not even freaking comparable. I mean, it's just bizarre, man, how Doug Ford is getting away with being a liberal in a conservative party. It's very, very annoying. I don't think that there's a politician in Canada that I detest more than Doug Ford currently. Like, Jagmeet's not around to take the brunt of that stick, right? How nice is it to not have Jagmeet around either, right? Isn't that a freaking treat? Carney, I don't like Carney. But I think I dislike Ford more than I dislike Carney, because it feels like Ford played a critical role in Pierre not winning that election, because he kind of endorsed Carney and not Pierre, which is bizarre. But hey, let bygones be bygones, right? Fat pig with rabies mentality. All right. Next up here, we're going to take a look at this weird Canadian story of a bank in Canada is blaming a customer for $20,000 in credit card fraud. The bank is blaming the customer for fraud instead of the customer saying, hey, I got money stolen from me. Anyways, let's take a look at the story, because this is kind of weird.
Jordan Judge wasn't expecting two charges totaling nearly $20,000 on his Scotiabank Visa card last fall.
Well, it was definitely astonishment.
An almost $18,000 charge to a British university he'd never heard of, more than $1,800 to someone he didn't know.
I wasn't worried at the time because I knew it wasn't my charge and I couldn't be held accountable for it.
Or so he thought. He disputed the charges, but Scotia pinned the blame on him, saying evidence suggests he must have disclosed one-time passwords sent to his phone. Judge did receive one password needed to approve that $18,000 charge, but it said do not share with anyone, so he insists he didn't. This lawyer and consumer advocate says the bank can't just say Judge is liable.
One would like to see more in terms of actual evidence demonstrating that the customer was negligent rather than an assertion.
Credit card customers are supposed to be protected under the Bank Act, which sets the maximum liability for unauthorized charges at $50, unless a customer is grossly negligent with their personal information. A cybersecurity expert read the letter Scotiabank sent to Judge and says they don't provide proof their customer did anything wrong.
The bank has provided no evidence of any logs or any sequence of events that has been timestamped or reviewed in any way.
And while Scotiabank insists that texting a password has a proven track record in mitigating fraudulent activities, POPA disagrees.
It's vulnerable to a number of different types of compromises.
The university behind the $18,000 charge says the bank never contacted them, but after GoPublic reached out, it reversed the charge. And after repeated inquiries from GoPublic, Scotiabank quietly reimbursed the other charge and all the interest. While things end well for Judge, the cybersecurity expert says in the face of rising fraud, financial institutions need to do a better job of investigating and providing clear evidence before claiming the customer is to blame.
Yeah, this is mental. I actually listened to, I don't know if it was Kevin O'Leary's advice. It was somebody else, some billionaire's advice of never carrying a debit card. I only carry credit cards. My family only carries credit cards because of fraud. Because if you get money taken out of your debit account, it's very, very hard to get that back, like fraudulently taken out. Now, if there's a fraudulent credit card charge, it's a lot easier because the credit card companies, that's their money, right? It's borrowing money from them essentially. And it's crazy now to see that they're saying, well, you know, it's probably your fault. It's probably your fault. $20,000 to a credit card company for, I mean, I get if it was like $250,000 or something that was in six figures, right? Like way, way up there in price. Then the credit card company be like, okay, well, let's take our time with this because that's a lot of money to just refund and try to reverse that charge, right? And let's do our due diligence properly. Like there's levels to investigations, but for 20 grand, you would think that they would be a little bit more receptive of the fact that that dude wasn't the one that made that charge. It's freaky. It's freaky to see that the government can freeze our bank accounts, as we've seen, and we kind of unfortunately continue to see. Also, the person behind the freezing of the accounts is now our prime minister. So, hey, we're off to a good start, Canada. But now it's even freakier to see that because of just cybersecurity and hacking and stuff like that, that our personal credit card information can be taken, used fraudulently against us, and it's almost impossible to get that money back. I mean, what's the point? What's even the point of being in Canada at this point, right? Does anybody feel that way? Not to sound like a doomer, but it just feels so defeating. We have insanely high taxes. We have low wages. We have insane amount of crime. Criminals get treated better than law-abiding citizens, it seems. Unaffordability through the roof, and the fact that the government can just take our money, take our land, and throw us in jail without any real reason. It's kind of scary times. But hey, let's not all have doom and gloom. Let's try to look at the positive side of things, such as question period. Question period is now starting to take place. They are doing statements by members. So before we get into this, before I switch the screens and we start watching statements by members in the House, I do want to encourage everyone who is currently watching the live stream to take the time right now to hit the like button. Let's get those likes as high as we can. Subscribe to the channel. Let's see if we can hit 130,000 subscribers sooner than later. And if you haven't yet already, put a W down in the chat to show your support for the Conservatives. And without further ado, let's get into what's going on in the House, ladies and gentlemen.
I assure you, she has lots of patience. Thank you, Rebecca, for standing as a team as we once again take this journey together. And now it's time to get back to hard work. Canada's need us in these challenging times. Conservatives are here to work tirelessly on their behalf, and that's exactly what we're going to do.
The Honourable Member for Bourassa. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank the people of Bourassa for the great honor of representing them here in the House of Commons. It's a huge honor, and I also want to send a message to my colleagues. Despite our differences, we all share the same commitment to serve with integrity, to listen, and to serve with humility as we represent the voice of those who put us here. Let's make this Parliament a moment of progress and respect for all Canadians. We are here to bring about change despite any challenge that we face. Every word that will be spoken here in this House can change lives. I will share with my colleagues a quote from Nelson Mandela, who said, "Everything seems impossible until it's done. So let's make this Parliament a place where the impossible can be done."
The Honourable Member for Prince Albert.
Before I begin, I'd like to thank the residents of the riding of Prince Albert for my re-election, me as their Member of Parliament. As members of this House are aware, my home province of Saskatchewan is experiencing one of the worst starts to the wildfire season on record.
Yeah, man.
More than 500,000 hectares have been burned.
Oh,
and as of
my
Sunday
goodness,
afternoon,
already.
20 communities remained under evacuation orders. 15 active wildfires are forcing residents from communities such as Timber Bay, Hall Lake, Pelican Narrows to flee their homes. Premier Scott Moe recently spoke about the value of developing a national investment strategy, one where critical resources like air tankers can be owned by the country and shared across jurisdictions to meet the surge capacity when and where needed. It is about protecting our communities, our forests, and our future. Thank you to the firefighters and emergency personnel who are putting themselves at great risk to protect our communities. And please, let us all pray for rain.
The Honourable Member for Cardigan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Having spent most of my life as a dairy farmer in eastern Prince Edward Island, I'd like to take this opportunity to raise a glass to all the dairy farmers across this nation. As you may know, World Milk Day was June 1st. It's a day celebrated around the world. It highlights the nutritional value of milk and recognizes the hard work of our dairy farmers, the women and men who work so hard every day to provide safe and nutritious milk to Canadians. With over 9,000 Canadian dairy farms, the dairy sector supports over 270,000 full-time jobs in communities in every province across this country. A healthy, vibrant dairy sector brings stability to both rural and urban communities while supporting the vitality of its related industries. I'm proud to be a Canadian dairy farmer, to be the son of a dairy farmer, the father of another, and to coin a phrase from the members opposite, I come from boots, not suits.
Isn't that what Pierre Poilievre campaigned on?
To declare a state of emergency in response to the rising rates of vandalism, open drug use, arson, theft, overdose, and public indecency. Businesses can't even secure the mandatory insurance due to the high rates of vandalism. Meanwhile, the city is experiencing between 20 and 30 overdoses per day. City Councillor Scott Nelson said this: the rates of crime, vandalism, drugs, and overdoses have skyrocketed and it's out of control. Williams Lake, a population of 10,000, 6 prolific offenders commit over 98% of the crime. When they're in jail, the crime rate goes down. When they're up, or when they're out, it skyrockets. This new government must finally take the fentanyl crisis seriously, get tough on crime, lock up repeat offenders, and keep our communities safe.
There you go,
The honourable member for Pierre Verchères. In New France in 1724, 4 brothers under the age of 20, François, Jacques, Jean, and Pierre Archambault, settled on the banks of the Richelieu River on land that was then part of the Contrecoeur Seigneurie. They were joined by other families until they were numerous enough in 1750 to build their own church. After the deportation of 1755, they welcomed many refugees who settled in what is now known as the Rang de l'Acadie. And on November 23, 1837, thanks to reinforcements from Saint-Antoine, the Patriotes won the victory at Saint-Denis, and among them was a certain Georges-Étienne Cartier, who later changed allegiance. Today, Saint-Antoine has retained all of its charm and all of its history, and my ancestor, François Guertin, could never have imagined as he cleared his land that 300 years later, one of his descendants would be in Parliament to celebrate the 275th anniversary of his village.
Holy smokes. What's going on here? We getting hacked by Russia or something?
Would be in Parliament to celebrate the 275th anniversary of his village, one of those beautiful villages on earth. Happy 275th anniversary to all the men and women of St. Antoine.
Member for Humber River, Black Creek.
Mr. Speaker, I'm honoured, as are my colleagues, to rise in the House for the 45th Parliament to say thank you to the constituents of Humber River, Black Creek for giving me the great opportunity and privilege of representing them for the 10th time here in Ottawa. I want to thank my tireless husband, Sam, my children, Kathy, Deanna, and Sam, for their continued support. A special thanks to my son-in-law, Graziano, for his immense support during the election, and daughter-in-law, Claudia, and the grandchildren. My staff, Amy, Albert, Abby, Stephanie, Zanya, for their dedication to helping the residents of Humber River, Black Creek every day. I would not have been elected and re-elected without the tireless efforts of the many volunteers during the campaign. To name a few, Terrell, Chris, Juan, Marina, Chris, Dayton, Senna, and Marianne. There are many more I would like to acknowledge.
I'm going to start listening to the question period at night time, so it puts me to sleep.
I will continue to honor my oath to serve our community of Humber River, Black Creek, dedication and integrity as we work together.
Use this boredom right now to hit the like button, folks.
Member for Sudbury East, Manitoulin, Nickel-Belt.
Mr. Speaker, last week this Liberal government tabled a $486 billion spending bill. The Prime Minister promised during the election that he would govern Canada with a new fiscal discipline. Well, Mr. Speaker, it seems like we have a case of meet the new boss just as the same as the old boss. While many people in Northern Ontario struggle to make ends meet with the ever-increasing costs of everyday life, the Liberals don't get it. They seem to talk a good game of fiscal restraint, but talk is cheap, unlike the cost of living. The Prime Minister's first bill does nothing to ease the burden of skyrocketing mortgage payments, groceries, and energy. Instead, it increases government spending by 8%, including a 36% increase for consultants. When will the Liberals put the interests of everyday Canadians ahead of their well-connected insiders in Ottawa?
The honourable member for Scarborough Agincourt.
Mr.
Speaker, thank you to the people of Scarborough Agincourt for placing their trust in me a fourth time. Gratitude to the many volunteers, supporters, campaign team, and my family who all worked so hard to allow me to continue to be a voice in Ottawa and also in the riding. I am here for you and because of you. I want to welcome all the new constituents who have joined Scarborough Agincourt because of the federal electoral boundary changes. I will focus on affordability, tariff concerns, and community safety, which is what I heard at the doors. We are truly a vibrant community, which is reflected in our many places of worship, small businesses, and excellent restaurants. I am so very proud to represent one of the most culturally diverse ridings in Canada. Thank you.
The honourable member for Carleton Trail.
It ain't diverse, man. I used to work in Agincourt. It's called Agincourt for a reason.
Has repeatedly refused to be transparent about his financial holdings. Instead of coming clean about his financial interests, he dumped his assets into a blind trust, exposing a loophole in Canada's financial disclosure laws. Through this scheme, he is keeping his financial interests a secret from Canadians in order to escape accountability. This follows a pattern of shady actions. Prior to becoming Prime Minister, he held two multi-billion-dollar funds in offshore tax havens so his company, Brookfield, could avoid paying Canadian taxes. After tabling a spending bill asking for $500 billion, Canadians deserve to know if the Prime Minister is using that spending to boost his own investment portfolio. The Prime Minister must tell Canadians what assets he held when he entered public office and if those assets were held in offshore tax havens to avoid paying Canadian taxes.
The honourable member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's with great humility that I accept this second mandate. The people of Rivière-des-Mille-Îles offered me that in the last election, and I truly appreciate it. I thank them from the bottom of my heart. Mr. Speaker, it's so... I'm sorry.
What the heck?
To all my colleagues, any seat is a very important seat in this House of Commons. Believe me. And I'll say it to all new members. I wouldn't have been able to do this without the support of my partner, my kids, my family, and my friends. And especially without the support of my volunteers, Mr. Speaker. It's been such a long time, and they worked so hard. I'm sorry to the honourable member, but...
yeah, cut her off. You don't care that much about her tears. Just do your job.
Mr. Speaker, after the lost Liberal decade, Canadians can no longer afford the housing hell created by these Liberals. According to one homeless report in the Niagara region, chronic homelessness is up 41%. The problem is only getting worse, and I can see the evidence in every community in my riding. According to one home building association, housing starts are decelerating rapidly, and a massive supply deficit is beginning to take place. Meanwhile, existing homeowners are also struggling. According to Equifax, homeowners experiencing a 6% increase in people unable to make a mortgage payment. Mortgage delinquency is increased by 71% across Ontario.
Shame.
The Liberal plan will create a second housing bureaucracy and will do nothing to build more homes. Canadians want action. Conservatives will continue to support a real plan that will lower taxes and make life more affordable and bring home the dream of home ownership.
The honourable member for Cape Breton, Canso, Antigonish.
As I rise for the first time of Member of Parliament for Cape Breton, Canada, Antigonish, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the constituents of our riding for putting their trust in me as their representative. And to my campaign team, this journey would not have been possible without you. Mr. Speaker, June is National Indigenous History Month in Canada.
I thought June was Pride Month.
It is a month to celebrate Indigenous culture. It is a time to reflect on our shared history, and it is a time to acknowledge the vast contributions of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. National Indigenous History Month is also an opportunity to embrace Indigenous events in our communities, hear the beautiful languages, and support the work of Indigenous arts and crafts. I encourage all Canadians to get involved with National Indigenous History Month this June. Walaliek, Miigwech, Marci, Nokamik.
Yes, Queen.
Oral questions.
Honorable interim leader of the Conservative Party.
Elbows up, promising dollar-for-dollar tariffs on the U.S. and promising this would generate $20 billion in revenue. It turns out it was actually elbows down, and the Prime Minister broke his promise and secretly canceled those tariffs. Now Trump is threatening 50% tariffs on Canadian steel, which will devastate Canada's steel industry and put thousands of steel workers out of their jobs. Can the Prime Minister look steel workers in the eye, tell them it wasn't actually elbows down, and how much money his tariffs will actually generate?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Clearing this house and the Prime Minister, we will fight, Mr. Speaker, against these unjustified and illegal tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminium, Mr. Speaker. We're going to protect our workers and our industry, and the Minister of Industry already spoke about that over the weekend. And we're going to build a strong Canada, Mr. Speaker. We're going to build a Canada of tomorrow, a confident Canada, a prosperous Canada, a Canada that we can all be proud of, Mr. Speaker.
You had the chance to do that, but you haven't done that. You had the chance to do it, but you haven't done it.
It doesn't matter which Liberal stands up to answer a question in this Parliament or last Parliament. They just actually never answer a question, Mr. Speaker. And it's not complicated. Elbows up was dollar-for-dollar tariffs. Has the Prime Minister already broken his promise to steelworkers, or was elbows up simply just fake news? And now we're facing the Trump tariffs, and steelworkers from coast to coast to coast are in serious jeopardy of losing their jobs. It's a simple question. How much money from these quote-unquote elbows-up tariffs have they generated?
Now,
the Honourable
elbows
Minister
down is right.
of Industry.
There's a lot of anxiety across the country, particularly when it comes to the steel and aluminum sectors. That's why over the weekend I've been in contact with industry leaders as well as union leaders. And we will continue to make sure that we protect their jobs. In order to be in solution mode, Mr. Speaker, we will make sure that Canadian steel and aluminum is used in our major infrastructure projects. That is why steel workers have said over the weekend, at a time where our steel and aluminum sectors are being hit by massive U.S. tariffs, this is the kind of leadership we've been demanding, and it has delivered.
She's such a LARPer, man. They're so fake.
Elbows up against U.S. tariffs. He promised dollar-for-dollar counter tariffs. He promised it would generate $20 billion in revenue, but he broke those promises. He secretly dropped counter tariffs to effectively zero. He stopped fighting back against President Trump pretty early on, and now Trump is threatening to double tariffs on Canadian steel to 50%, a direct attack against our workers, their livelihoods, and the Canadian economy. So if the Prime Minister really is elbows up, if he's really fighting back, can he tell our steelworkers how many dollars have been collected in counter tariff revenue from the U.S.? How many dollars? What's the number, Mr.
Yes.
The Honourable Minister
Put some W's down in the chat for her, huh?
Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank my colleague and congratulate her for the fact that she will be now my critic. So good news, looking forward to working with her. Indeed, the comments coming out of the White House are preoccupying. That being said, no executive order has been signed yet. So we take these comments very seriously, but we are working on all scenarios. That's why the Prime Minister is in Saskatoon meeting with the premiers of the provinces and territories, and that's also why we will make sure that we execute our plan, fight, protect, and build.
You don't do shit.
The honourable member
Haven't done
for
nothing.
Kildonan and St. Paul.
Is there a dollar amount on revenue from those counter tariff. So we can assume it's effectively zero. And if the steel tariffs weren't bad enough, the Prime Minister is determined to keep the industrial carbon tax on our steel production, driving up the cost of steel production here at home, which perhaps is really no surprise given the Prime Minister said he claimed that Canadians don't even use that much steel, as if we don't use dishwashers and fridges and cars and pots and pans and baby strollers and housing infrastructure, all of which are made with steel, Mr. Speaker. So how can the Prime Minister claim to be elbows up for workers and fighting for affordability while keeping a punishing carbon tax on our Canadian steel producers?
Man, put a W down for her, right? That's fiery.
Finance and National Revenue.
We'll take no lesson from the Conservative. Mr. Speaker, to protect our workers in the steel industry, in the aluminum industry, in the forestry sector, in all the sectors of our economy, to defend our workers and our industry, Mr. Speaker. We should all in this room, in this House, stand proudly to defend Canadian workers, defend Canadian industry, and build Canada strong. That's Canadian, Mr. Speaker.
But where's the dollar figure? The counter tariffs?
For Chicoutimi-Leflore. Mr. Speaker, aluminum workers in Saguenay are very concerned. The Prime Minister promised Canadians that he would stand up to Americans and their tariffs.
Are back.
And now Mr. Trump is threatening to slap once again a 50% tariff on aluminum. Meanwhile, the Liberal government has reduced tariffs on American products to almost nothing. But the Prime Minister told us he would collect $2 billion. Can Saguenay workers know how much the Prime Minister has collected in counter tariffs to date? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Listen, I understand the anxiety that my colleague has expressed, and this is throughout the aluminum sector, and that's why over the weekend I went to the Aluminum Summit Sunday evening in Montreal to meet with not only industry leaders, but also to talk with the union leaders. We're going to continue to support our aluminum sector in Quebec, and we're going to use aluminum and Quebec steel and Canadian steel in our infrastructure projects. We're going to create jobs, we're going to protect these workers, and we're going to be able to defend our country against this injustice from the White House. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Leflore.
With the
Mr.
industrial
Speaker,
carbon
many
tax.
Canadians voted for this Prime Minister thinking he would stand up to Mr. Trump. But it didn't take long for him to remove the counter tariffs on American products.
He did it immediately.
He said he would be more fiscally responsible, but he presented spending forecasts that even outstripped those of his predecessor. He talks like a conservative, but governs like Justin Trudeau. He says one thing and then does another. When will this Prime Minister stop talking out of both sides of his mouth? The Honourable Minister of Finance and National Revenue. I'm surprised to hear my colleagues' comments. He should be proud that our PM standing up to the President. We did not capitulate. We're standing up to defend workers in this industry. We know how important the aluminum industry is in Quebec. We know the expertise of our workers, and the best aluminum in the world is produced in Canada and Quebec, and we're going to continue to defend this industry and our workers and build a strong country together. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean.
Such a load of crap, eh?
Speaker, the Liberals got elected by promising that Trump's tariff threats would be their top priority. And yet, it's not the new tariff threats on aluminum and steel that are being discussed today in Saskatoon between the premiers. No, the priority being discussed is forcing Quebec to accept a dirty oil pipeline from the West. Quebecers voted for a government that would protect them from Donald Trump.
No, you're getting a pipeline.
Vote for pipelines.
Deal with it and
shut up, please. Are the Liberals going to get their priorities straight?
No, Quebec's getting 2 pipelines.
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
One, but put 2 pipelines through there.
Mr.
Shut them up.
Obviously, Quebecers are very concerned by the tariff war from the U.S., and that's why they elected us with 44 Quebec MPs. This is the first time since '81, and we are going to be here to defend jobs and workers in the aluminum sector, because we know that these tariff threats are against this sector. So we're going to work with the member from Lac-Saint-Jean and Bécancour, etc. But fundamentally, we're going to stand up tall to protect our jobs. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, even before meeting with Quebec and the provinces today, the Prime Minister met with business leaders yesterday. not representatives from the steel and aluminum industries to discuss Trump's new tariff threats. No, he met with CEOs from the fossil fuel sector. Oil companies first, Quebec and the provinces a close second. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister was not elected to serve oil companies. He was elected to protect Quebec's economy from Donald Trump's threats. How come these oil companies are coming first? The Honourable Minister of Industry. I think the Bloc needs to understand that the role of the PM is to talk to everyone, whether it's in the aluminum sector or in steel or clean energy or traditional energy. That's the job of the Prime Minister. That's something that the Bloc will never understand. Nevertheless, Mr. Speaker, what's fundamental is right now we want to build. We're going to invest in major infrastructure projects. And one of the infrastructure projects for the Quebec that is fundamental is the high-speed train from Windsor to Quebec City, something that the Bloc should support. The Honourable Member for Jean-Pierre.
This should have been done years ago.
While the prairies are burning, the premiers are in Saskatoon talking about dirty oil pipelines and abandoning environmental assessments. That's Canadian identity today, Mr. Speaker. A Liberal Prime Minister who talks to oil companies before talking to his provincial counterparts. Provinces that isolate Quebec to force it to accept a pipeline. All these people keep telling us that it's a matter of Canadian unity and of national interest. Does the Minister of Canadian Identity also believe that Canadian unity and the national interest mean building pipelines while the prairies burn?
Oh my goodness,
the Honourable Minister of Industry.
Quebec needs to be
Mr.
shut
Speaker,
down.
You know what's the national interest? That's job creation and protecting jobs, and
They're
that's
ruin
what
this country
people in
more
all
than they already
ridings where
have.
the Bloc are active in. Who's able to deliver? There's just one party, and that's the Liberal Party. And there's only one government that can protect and create jobs, and that's us. We're going to do this by working with the Quebec government, of course, and traveling with the provinces. But it's fundamental in this tariff war to fight against this White House rhetoric and to create jobs at the same time.
Honourable Member for Flamborough, Glenbrook, Brant North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister promised elbows up, promising dollar-for-dollar tariffs on the U.S. that would collect $20 billion. The Prime Minister broke that promise, giving Canadians elbows down when he dropped the tariffs on the U.S. to effectively zero. Now Trump is threatening to double tariffs on Canadian steel to 50%, attacking Canadian workers, their jobs, their livelihoods, and our industry. Can the Prime Minister tell our steel workers how much has been collected from tariffs on the U.S.?
It's a simple question.
The Honourable Minister of Finance and National Revenue.
How many billions of dollars?
On the other side is misinformed, but let's talk about the great things we've been doing for Canadians lately.
No.
Last week we introduced
Speaker
as the
should
first
shut this
thing in
down.
this House, air tax reduction for the middle class, Mr. Speaker. 22 million Canadians.
House Speaker needs to shut that down. He didn't answer the question. This isn't an advertising platform.
But we also make sure that we remove the GST for first-time home buyers on their first house, up to $1 million, Mr. Speaker. Those are measures that makes a difference in the life of Canadians. Those are measures that makes a difference in every region of Canada. Those are measures that build a Canada strong, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Flamborough, Glenbrook, Brant North.
So did you hear that, steel workers in Hamilton? Not a number in that arrogant answer.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that's surprising, given that this is a government whose Prime Minister believes that Canadians don't actually use steel in their daily lives. But for workers and businesses in my community of Hamilton who are looking for the support that might have come from the revenue of those counter tariffs, they're being left empty-handed and they are worried about their future. So let me ask again, if the Liberals are truly fighting back, can they tell us how much has been collected from tariffs? How much just...
How much? We want to know. Stream froze.
A number.
Just a number.
The Honourable Minister of
The fact
Industry.
that they can't even produce a number is embarrassing.
Anxiety across the country in the steel and aluminum sector,
Oh, give me
particularly
a
in Hamilton.
fucking
That's
break,
why I was
man.
in contact with the CEO of ArcelorMittal, the FASC, over the weekend, talking to the head also of the Canadian steelworkers, making sure that our MPs also from Hamilton are really on board, and as they're fighting for the jobs in their own communities. Mr. Speaker, Speaker, this rhetoric coming out of the White House is extremely preoccupying, but meanwhile, no executive order has been signed. That's why we'll continue to fight with counter tariffs to protect our workers and to make sure
How
that
much
we build
money you raised
national
from counter
progress.
tariffs?
The honourable member for New Tecumseh, Gwillimbury.
Mr. Speaker, unemployment is up 7%. Youth unemployment is 14%. Canadians can't find work, and the burden of government red tape is making things even worse. Small businesses spend 32 working days every year wrapped up in excessive regulations. It's no wonder they can't afford to hire or innovate. Will the Liberals finally cut the red tape, strangling our economy so businesses can hire and Canadians can find a job?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs for Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, this government is focused on making sure that employers have the quality, skill, talent that they need to grow their small, medium-sized businesses and ensure that corporations across this country have the kind of innovation and talent that they are all asking for. So I would recommend that that member listen to the employers and check in with the employers in his riding who are talking about the need for more talent. We'll be there, Mr. Speaker, for every Canadian that wants to ensure they can too get a great job.
The honourable member for New Tecumseh, Gwillimbury.
It's been 10 years, and I have been listening to Canadians, and the minister should listen to Canadians who can't find a job.
Sounds like the T-Rex
there are
from
fewer new
Toy
entrepreneurs
Story.
than ever. Productivity and growth are down. Forget the scissors, forget the pruners, hum them. We need a chainsaw to cut through all this red tape. It's time to clear a path for Canadians to be successful and to hire. So why do the Liberals keep choking Canadian workers and businesses with their red tape?
Sounds like the dinosaur from Toy Story.
Mr. Speaker, as the Prime Minister often says, no one can do to Canada the kind of bad things to be against the good things that Canadians can do for themselves. The Prime Minister and ministers are in Saskatoon today, doing the hard work of removing red tape in the form of internal trade barriers so we can have one Canadian economy and not 13 Canadian economies. This will lower prices up to 15%, productivity up to 7%, and add $200 billion to the economy, Mr. Speaker. That's eliminating red tape. That's standing up for Canada.
The honourable member for Windsor West.
These guys can't answer a single question.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister promised elbows up, promising dollar-for-dollar tariffs on the U.S. and claimed he would collect $20 billion. The Prime Minister broke down that promise, giving Canadian steel and auto workers an elbow in the ribs when he dropped tariffs on the U.S. to effectively zero. Now President Trump is threatening to double tariffs on Canadian steel to 50%, attacking Canadian workers, their jobs, their livelihoods, and our industry. Can the Prime Minister tell us how much he has actually collected from tariffs, and so far, how is he going to help secure jobs in Windsor?
The
Honourable Minister of Industry.
Only we will make sure that Canadian steel and aluminum is in our major projects, but we will make sure that all the investments we're putting in defense are to create jobs, which will have an impact on the steel and aluminum sector. And that is why the United Steelworkers mentioned at a
$20 billion in revenue, but in reality, he quietly dropped the tariffs on the U.S., practically to zero. And now Donald Trump is threatening to double tariffs on Canadian steel to 50%. This will destroy our industry and punish our workers. Since the Canadian tax revenue was supposed to support Canadian steel workers, can the Prime Minister tell us how much has he collected so far for jobs in Oxford, and just give us just the number?
The Honourable Minister of Finance and National Revenue.
Speaker, I would like to see in this House the same movement we've seen with steel workers in the industry, Mr. Speaker. This is a nation where we need to come together as a nation. This is a moment to fight together these unjustified tariffs, Mr. Speaker. This is a time to make sure we protect our industry and our worker. This is a time where we need to build this country, like the Prime Minister is doing with the premiers today in Saskatoon.
Oh, mon Dieu. All they can talk
Mr.
about are the
Speaker,
premier's
I just
meeting in
wish in this house that everyone would
Saskatoon.
stand up to defend our industry, defend our worker, and build Canada strong, Mr. Speaker.
He can't answer a single freaking question.
Surprise, they can't give us a number.
Yeah.
And now Trump's 50% tariffs on steel will shut down our plants across our country. Thousands of jobs are on the line. Layoffs have already started in Oxford. There is anxiety on our floor shops and our kitchen tables. And it's not just Trump's tariffs that are killing jobs, it's also the Liberal industrial carbon tax.
That's right.
If the Prime Minister can't get a deal with Trump on tariffs, we'll at least give our workers a fighting chance. Remove the Liberal industrial carbon tax today.
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
If they care about tariffs,
Mr. Speaker, we know
why aren't
that
they
we
doing,
need to make sure
removing the
that
carbon
we
tax?
fight back with strong counter tariffs against this rhetoric
fighting back
coming out
against
of the
us.
White House. But you know what, Mr. Speaker, our strategy has been working. There's only 2 countries on earth that have put counter tariffs against tariffs by the Americans, China and us. And by the way, today the U.S. Chamber of Commerce said that this threat of 50% tariffs in the steel and aluminum sector was completely unacceptable. We will work with our allies within the American society, and we will make sure that we fight back.
she's such a dumb twat.
The Honourable Member for
Oh
BTB
my
to Ms.
goodness.
Kamank. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The elections have once again proven that Indigenous people are treated as second-class citizens federally. In a BTB Bay Janes Nunavut, the
So
Inuit were
fake.
unable to vote. It has been reported that in at least 6 communities, polling station opening hours were not respected. In Avujavik, the office was never even opened. No one was able to vote there. If this had happened in Toronto, it would have been a scandal. But in the North, it's tolerated. Does the Minister to Indigenous Services think it's normal that the Inuit were denied their right to vote in this way? The Honourable Government House Leader. Elections Canada is an independent agency and, in fact, one of the best in the world. And it protects our democracy very securely and efficiently. If there are issues in terms of the election and how they were conducted, well, questions should be brought to them. The Honourable Member for Abitibi to Miscamank. Mr. Speaker, Elections Canada has taken away the Inuits' right to vote, the most fundamental right in a democracy. This is completely unacceptable, yet it is accepted. No one's talking about it. We cannot condone this harm caused to the Inuit by Elections Canada, whether it's through incompetence or negligence. What will the minister do to ensure that Elections Canada reveals everything that happened, and what measures will they take to ensure that this never happens again in their riding or elsewhere? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, like the member knows full well, if there are issues, these concerns can be brought, as all Canadians can do. They can bring their concerns to Elections Canada, and I'm sure that this independent agency, which is the pride of our country, will try to answer these questions. And the right to vote is obviously the most fundamental right for Canadians, and we fight for it every day here in the House. But Elections Canada is in charge of conducting our elections. They do a good job, and they will be answering these questions.
The Honourable Member for Kitchener Centre.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister introduced his first spending bill. The Liberals increased spending by 8% after promising to keep it below 2%. Spending on consultants alone increased by more than 36% to an unprecedented $26.1 billion.
Yeah, that's
now,
not sustainable.
Every Canadian household has to pay $1,400 per year in taxes just to pay for well-connected Liberal insiders. Liberal spending drives inflation. When will they spend responsibly to ensure Canadians and residents of Kitchener Centre never have to decide between filling the refrigerator or putting...
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, this new government is making sure that spending is being carefully managed and focus on our most pressing priorities.
Bro, they can't even answer how much money Canada has made from tariffs, yet Trump brags about the billions that he makes off of Chinese tariffs. Like, this is crazy.
We will continue to review our spending to make sure that we're being efficient, effective, and focused. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
If you voted for Liberals, man, there's something freaking wrong with you.
Mr. Speaker, on the very day the Prime Minister pledged a 2% spending cap, his government unveiled a bill that surges spending by 8%, shattering that promise. Consultant fees skyrocketed by 36% after they promised to cut them, costing Canadian families $1,400 in additional taxes. While households are forced to manage their budgets, this Liberal government acts unchecked, putting jobs at risk. After 10 years of Liberal failures, why does the Prime Minister think it's okay to spend even more money on government insiders and lobbyists?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, I just talked about our spending reduction, but also let's talk about investment in the mains. It includes important funding to support dental care, the Canadian forces, and border services. This new government is investing in Canadians to build Canada strong. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Windsor-Tecumseh.
Here, here.
Mr. Speaker, a new Prime Minister, but nothing has changed. He's proposing the same spending that will cause the same painful consequences for Canadians. People in the auto industry in Windsor, Ontario are worried about losing their homes if they are laid off. The reasons of Liberal spending are missed mortgage payments and skyrocketing losses, job losses. How is a Liberal government asking to spend $500 billion causing further inflation without a budget plan?
L'Honorable Ministre des Finances et du Revenu National.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to welcome my colleague to this House, but she should know that we made generational investment in Windsor, Mr. Speaker, and the sector. She should be celebrating the Liberal government. She should be standing up to say thanks to this government. The worker, the industry, people in Windsor can see a future, Mr. Speaker.
I don't think so.
The people in Windsor know that we have their back. They know that we're going to fight for them. We're going to fight for the industry. We're going to fight for the auto workers. We're going to build Canada strong together, Mr. Speaker.
L'Honorable député de Richmond.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Athabasca. Thank you, Mr.
You
Speaker.
didn't even say thanks.
Last week, the Prime Minister
That's
brought in
Dallas.
his first spending bill. After 10 years of this Liberal government, I thought it was impossible to somehow be worse than Justin Trudeau, but this is worse. The Prime Minister inherited an obese Liberal government and promised to spend less. And yet here there is 8% more in spending than what Justin Trudeau did during his last year. Without a budget, how can the Prime Minister explain this to his colleague, who's the former Minister of Finance of Quebec? How can he explain that we will be managing Canada without a budget? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation, Public Services and Procurement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is true that we received a strong mandate to make government more efficient, for example, by using new technology and by reducing dependence on external consultants. That's what we're doing and will continue to do, Mr. Speaker. We will also ensure that the public service has the expertise and tools it needs in order to accomplish its mission. But I will also mention that, for example, in the estimates, there is funding for dental care, among other things, which millions of people in the ridings of my colleagues on the other side of the House depend on. My colleagues said they would support this during the campaign, but now they say they won't, and it's really regrettable and shameful that they'll be taking away dental care for millions of people, their own constituents. The Honourable Member. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, let me just say that we are not going to take budget lessons from the other side of the House. Spending will increase about 3 times faster than inflation and demographic growth. That's a $500 million level without a single budget. $500 billion rather, without a budget. When my colleagues go meet families, single moms, entrepreneurs, all sorts of people who manage to make budgets and who are struggling to make ends meet, how can people like that accept this kind of spending without a budget? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I'd like to thank my constituents, but it is amazing to see the Conservative selective amnesia because just a month ago they were unable to put out a costed budget, even though they had been a costed platform, even though they've been asking for an election for years. They had plenty of time to prepare, but then they produced a platform that wasn't worth the paper it was printed on. What would my colleague tell his constituents when he's going to vote against a dental care plan, which recently was opened up to people between 18 and 64, which will open up dental care to millions of Canadians? He should be ashamed to vote against that.
The honourable member for Winnipeg North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Secretary of State for Rural Development. Mr. Speaker, yesterday I had the opportunity.
Sorry, couldn't hear the member. Would the member like to start over? I still can't hear the member. So.
Secretary of State for Rural Development. And it is indeed a very serious issue. I'd ask my Conservative friends to calm down a little bit. You know, we have very serious wildfires that are taking place in Manitoba and Saskatchewan. Victims of this fire, Mr. Speaker, are having to be evacuated from rural communities in our prairies by the thousands. This is a very serious issue. I want to compliment the efforts of the firefighters and the first responders for doing a fantastic job. Can the Secretary of State explain what it is the federal government is doing?
The Secretary of State for Rural Development.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It is a very serious matter. And I was home in Saskatchewan this weekend, and I met with the Premier. We had a very good press conference. I met with Métis Indigenous leaders. I met with local leaders, and I met with a lot of different groups, including the evacuees that are struggling with this very challenging time. I want to say that many of my constituents were forced to flee their homes, and certainly our prayers are sent out to them. But I'll say quickly that the federal government is ready to assist. Mr. Speaker, we'll be there for Saskatchewan, we'll be there for Manitoba, we'll be there for
How are you going to be there? What are you providing? What are you doing? Let's get details.
Knocking on doors and met Foothills families who are in tears because they're losing their jobs and they're losing their businesses.
Oh, I froze. Maybe they should be supporting more controlled burns and proper fire management. I mean, this is getting out of control. What the hell's going on, man? Mark Carney don't even have the budget to keep question period up and running. Oh.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is indeed meeting the 13 provincial and territorial leaders today with one clear goal: to support nation-building projects that bring Canadians together by ensuring that they are expedited but also efficiently reviewed. As the Prime Minister said, any project will need to get consensus from provinces, Indigenous communities and private partners, and will be subject to assessment. But Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has also been clear: it's time to build in Canada, and build is what we're going to do.
The Honourable Member for Foothills.
Well, the Prime Minister may be meeting, but he sure isn't listening. While he dawdles, the opportunities to unleash Canadian energy pass us by because of the Liberals' anti-energy legislation that blocks infrastructure and blocks investment. Like the provinces, they want to build. Canadian workers want to work. Canadians want energy independence, but C-69 blocks pipelines, 48 blocks shipping. The job-killing carbon tax, or the industrial carbon tax, is punishing our energy sector.
Of trade around the world, this government will fight, protect, and build. This Prime Minister is in Saskatoon today with 13 provincial and territorial leaders to build one Canadian economy, not 13. And yes, Mr. Speaker, we intend to build this country. We intend to build major national projects in this country, and we intend to put Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum, and Canadian workers to work building the country that we live in.
The Honourable Member for
You ain't building nothing, man. You can't even get a pipeline done.
The Prime Minister is meeting with provinces in Saskatoon today. The consensus is clear as the call to build pipelines and energy infrastructure becomes louder and louder. The only one standing in the way is the federal Liberal government. Building energy projects means a stronger Canadian economy, less dependence on the United States, and powerful paychecks for Canadian workers. Will the Liberal government approve a pipeline at the meeting in Saskatchewan today?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has been very, very clear, and I don't know if my friends across the aisle have heard it quite clearly. Certainly Canadians heard it in the last federal election when they returned a Liberal government with a very, very clear mandate.
Well, you guys campaign on lies and fear. What are you talking about?
Against trade threats from other places, protect the citizens of this country, protect, yes, our natural resources, protect our workers, but also, Mr. Speaker, to build this country, to build major national projects. That's what's on the agenda today in Saskatoon, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Edmonton Northwest.
Mr. Speaker, we hear a lot of rhetoric from this Liberal government about making Canada an energy superpower, but their commitment to job-killing anti-Canadian energy legislation holds back our potential as a nation. The actions needed today are to repeal the No New Pipeline C-69, repeal the shipping ban C-48, repeal the job-killing oil and gas production cap, repeal the industrial carbon tax. So will this Liberal government take action today, the action needed to repeal their anti-energy agenda?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, I don't know how we can be much more clear. The Prime Minister convened the 13 provincial and territorial leaders today with the express purpose of discussing with them the kind of major national nation-building projects that this country can consider undertaking. That is what is going on in Saskatoon. I don't know if the members across actually follow the news or followed the election campaign, but what happened is we said it's time to build, Mr. Speaker, and build is what we're going to do.
Getting roasted by an Indigenous conservative about
Thank you, Mr.
pipelines.
Speaker.
I love that.
The Prime Minister is meeting the provinces in Saskatchewan today, and we're hearing a clear consensus. We're hearing calls to build pipelines and energy infrastructure. There are more and more of these calls. Quebecers want pipelines, and the only obstacle in their way is the federal government. If we build energy projects, we'll be strengthening our Canadian economy, reducing our dependence on the U.S., and we'll be making sure that our Canadian workers can bring home good paychecks. So, will the Liberal government approve the building of a new Canadian pipeline today at the meeting? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is indeed in Saskatoon today. And what is being discussed there? Yes, energy. Yes, big national energy projects. Yes, the complete elimination of interprovincial trade barriers and make just one federal economy, or one pan-Canadian economy rather, in order to increase our GDP by 4% according to some economists. And so we will be making sure to create good jobs, investment in Quebec, elsewhere in Canada, and Mr. Speaker, we will be building Canada. That's what we're here to do. The honourable member.
They couldn't get it done though in 10 years, so they need more time apparently.
The Prime Minister said that he had a plan to build new energy projects. So what better time than today to present his plan to all of the Canadian premiers together and explain how he will be building that energy infrastructure. People in my riding in Quebec and in Canada are all sick and tired of paying more for less. Will the Liberal government spare a thought for our rural regions and abolish Bill C-69, the anti-energy bill? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker.
Hey, if you guys haven't yet already, take the time now to hit the like button.
I know the member is new to this house. I don't know if he's following the news.
Please.
But the Prime Minister is in Saskatoon, and he's working closely with all of the provinces and territories. And what are they talking about? Energy projects, as well as others, that will make Canada an economic superpower on the global stage. Our mandate is to build Canada strong. That is the mandate we got through the election campaign. And that's exactly what we're going to do.
The honourable member for Calgary Skyview.
Mr. Speaker, the very first call I received from a Calgarian was from a small business owner being extorted by criminals for $300,000. Extortions in Calgary, Brampton, and Edmonton are on the rise and only getting worse. Under these Liberal extortion cases are up 357%. Liberals voted down Conservative Bill C-381 to tackle extortion. The bill sets mandatory minimum penalties for extortion after Liberals took away penalties in their soft on crime bill C5. Will the Prime Minister work with Conservatives to adopt Bill C381 to crack down on violent extortions?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, extortion is a serious crime and we're taking it seriously. Extortion carries a penalty of life in prison in Canada, Mr. Speaker. That is extremely serious. If used with committed with a firearm, there's minimum sentences as well. We'll act decisively to strengthen the criminal code and move aggressively to protect victims by making bail laws stricter as well, Mr. Speaker, for violent organized criminals. And we'll work closely with the RCMP and local police across the country. We created a task force. There's more work to do. We're investigating these serious issues, and I hope the criminal...
They tried that. He said that for 10 years. He said that for 10 years.
Member for Fort McMurray.
Failed Liberal drug policies flooding the streets with dangerous drugs, causing crime and chaos in our street, are making the addiction crisis worse.
Yeah.
Every day, 22 Canadians die from drug overdose. During the last Liberal decade, we've seen more people die from addiction than we lost in the Second World War. We've heard heartbreaking stories of young people becoming addicted to drugs labeled as safe, only to later lose their life to addiction. Conservatives want to see investment in treatment and recovery. Simple question. Will the Prime Minister reverse course and put an end to the deadly, unsafe supply program today?
Honorable Ministre de la Santé.
Merci, Monsieur. The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for the question. Well, Mr. Speaker, as you know, this situation affects Canadians, and my department and I are closely considering the question, and we will be looking for solutions. Thank you.
Member for Fort McMurray.
Wow, one heck of an
Fentanyl is
answer.
100 times more potent than heroin, and as little as 2 milligrams can kill a person. Through the last Liberal decade, Canada has become a fentanyl manufacturing hub, with Breaking Bad-style super labs popping up across the country. Mass fentanyl production is mass murder. But Liberal laws let these monsters who traffic the deadly drugs walk free. Conservatives are proposing mandatory life sentences to those involved with trafficking, production, distribution of more than 40 milligrams of fentanyl.
That's
Will the Prime
reasonable.
Minister take real action and give life sentences to the drug kingpins committing mass murder?
It's honestly an act of terrorism at that point.
Mr. Speaker, fentanyl has impacted every single community in North America, and I know that in
what are you going to do about it, Gary?
And its use have killed so many young people. That's why we listed 7 cartels as terrorist entities under the criminal code. I'm working closely with Kevin Brasseau, Canada's fentanyl czar, at home and abroad, to put a laser-sharp focus on dismantling fentanyl.
What else are you going to do about it, Gary?
We'll put those who profit from this drug behind bars, Mr. Speaker. We will always be there to protect Canadians.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Nothing else.
The Honourable Member for Madawaska Rescue.
No tougher sentences.
Mr. Speaker, Francophone immigration plays an essential role in strengthening minority Francophone communities throughout the country. It's also important for supporting economic growth, and that's why I'm proud to say that we have set ambitious goals for the years to come: 8.5% for 2025, 9.5% for 2026, and 10%
this guy looks like he
for
walked out of
2027.
a Counter-Strike or League of Legends gaming cafe and stumbled into Parliament.
About what the government is doing to support Francophone immigration. Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank my colleague for his question and his hard work on Francophone immigration. Last year, we exceeded our Francophone immigration target for Francophone immigration outside Quebec, and we are determined to support the strength and long-term growth of Francophone communities outside Quebec. That's why our new government will establish a 12% objective for Francophone immigration outside Quebec by 2029. Thank you.
Excellent. Member for Brantford, Brent South, Six Nations.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister just handed the keys to his government to Marc-Andre Blanchard, Trudeau's UN ambassador and now his chief of staff. This is the guy who wants to invest in killing oil and gas and do it.
Would the member like to rewind a bit and to... Sure.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister just handed the keys to the government to Mr. Blanchard, Trudeau's UN ambassador, now his chief of staff. This is the guy who wants to invest in killing in oil and gas. Where are the claps? And do it through Brookfield. Right. Who else worked at Brookfield? Anyone? Well, there was the Prime Minister himself. Why is the Prime Minister surrounding his government with Trudeau loyalists who want to shut down Canada's energy sector? And is that why he still refuses to publicly disclose his Brookfield assets?
Yeah. Throw a W down in the chat for Uncle Brock.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, we welcome the appointment of a new Chief of Staff in the office of the Prime Minister. Mr. Blanchard is a great public servant, a great Canadian who has had a stellar career in the private and the public sectors, and we welcome back to public service. And as for the Prime Minister, he follows, as all members must, the most stringent code of ethics for elected members in the world, and the Prime Minister will obviously continue to comply with all of the rules.
Oh, yeah. For sure. Just like Trudeau did, huh?
It's not just the energy sector under threat, it's public safety too. While the Prime Minister's new Chief of Staff is hell-bent on shutting down oil and gas, he's also brought back David Lametti as Principal Secretary, the same failed Justice Minister.
I mean, to be fair, the Conservatives interrupt very often with clapping like this when the Liberals catch themselves in a funny little zinger.
If the member can start from the top on that.
I don't like it, but I respect it.
It's the same minister that they fired. This is the same minister who gutted bail and pushed soft on crime bills like Bill C-5 and C-75 that they all voted for. Laws that helped unleash chaos on our streets, drive violent crime up 50%. Is the Prime Minister really doubling down on the same Trudeau insiders who always put criminals over that of community safety?
Of course.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
There seems to be a very odd fixation on the personnel decisions in the Prime Minister's office. The obvious accountability is done in this House, as the member well knows, and he can ask any question that he wants to any minister of this House without impugning people that aren't here. But Mr. Lametti, for his part, a great former parliamentarian, a great Italian Canadian, a distinguished person who is entering public service. These people should be celebrating that great Canadians are prepared to step up and enroll for public service and serve Canadians.
It's June. It's Pride Month. Let him have it. It's his month.
The Prime Minister yesterday announced his new Chief of Staff and Principal Secretary. These are two of the top officials, some of the most powerful people in Ottawa, directing policy. The new Chief of Staff wants to kill oil and gas and says it needs to be done through Brookfield. David Lametti was Trudeau's Justice Minister, oversaw our broken bail system, and kept C-5 and C-75 laws on the books. Why is the Prime Minister surrounding himself with Trudeau officials that want to keep oil and gas in the ground and keep soft on crime laws on the books?
The Honourable Government.
Probably know why, because nothing has really changed.
Mr. Speaker, I do not understand this odd fixation with personnel decisions. What we have in this House is a number of public servants who are quite willing to answer questions about the public policies of this government and to be held accountable for those. We obviously celebrate when distinguished, capable, and talented people join the government of Canada. That is certainly the case, as we heard over the weekend, but I suggest that members move on to asking about the issues that Canadians are concerned about.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Confederation.
repeated threats by the United States to our economic sovereignty, Canadians chose to give our government a strong mandate to build a strong Canada. Now, as we've heard, today the Prime Minister and Premiers are meeting in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, one of the economic engines of this great country, and strengthening Canada's economy is on the agenda. Now, members opposite have imagined a lot of outcomes from a meeting they weren't invited to. But in an effort to get back to facts, can the Minister of Finance and National Revenue inform the House on details of this work and its importance to Canada?
L'honorable ministre des Finances et du Revenu National.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague from Calgary Confederation and welcome him to this House and thank him for the excellent work he's doing for people of Calgary, but also of Alberta, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, the First Minister's meeting is happening today in Saskatoon is an important opportunity for the Prime Minister to bring the Premiers together around the table with one common agenda, Mr. Speaker, focusing on building a stronger and united Canada. It's time to build one Canadian economy, accelerate the approval of nation-building projects. Mr. Speaker, together we're going to build Canada strong. That's what we're doing.
The honourable member for Barrie South, Innisfil.
For 7 months, parliamentary committees have sat idle while, according to the Prime Minister, the country is facing an existential threat, and it appears that he's in no rush to have them constituted. Committees are an important function of our democracy. Committees are where bills are scrutinized, where witnesses tell MPs about the impacts these bills and threats are having on their businesses, their lives, and their communities, where the government is held to account. We don't have a budget, and without committees, there will be no oversight or accountability. Maybe that's what the Prime Minister wants. Will the Prime Minister commit to ensuring committees are in place before his summer vacation starts?
The honourable.
I mean, that would be good.
Mr. Speaker, I've taken careful note, and of course, standing committees will be constituted in this House, as they always are. But I wonder where that member was last fall when this party spent 3 straight months refusing to hear one single government proposal with respect to improving the lives of Canadians, with respect to improving our environment, with respect to moving forward on that project. Where was that member? He should be ashamed of asking that question right now.
The honourable member for Rosemont, La Petite Patrie. Mr. Speaker, for 20 months, the Netanyahu regime has been mercilessly bombing Palestinians in Gaza. 54,000 are dead, including 15,000 children. Hundreds of thousands of people have been wounded. Hunger used as a weapon of war. Hospitals have been bombed. Families have burned alive. Once humanity said never again, but today it's happening again under our very eyes. The Prime Minister stood with France and the UK to say that if this didn't stop, he would not remain idle. On behalf of all of the children that have been murdered and mutilated in Gaza, will the Liberals prepare sanctions against Netanyahu and his cabinet?
The Honourable Secretary of State for International Development.
Mr. Speaker, Canada is deeply concerned by the renewed escalation in Gaza. These attacks put the lives of countless civilians in danger. We urge both parties to remain committed to ceasefires, save the preventable loss of countless lives. Essentials, foods, electricity, fuel, and medical supplies must never be used as political tools. We call for the immediate and unimpeded flow into the
Doug Ford was wrong for threatening to turn the power off?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And that does it for today's question period.
All right, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank goodness. What a frickin' snooze fest, man. Holy crap. We need Pierre. Pierre, win your seat. Run the by-election, please. We're begging you. Oh, my goodness. It's so difficult. I don't want politics without Pierre. I'll tell you that, man. It's just hard. It's great that we got Trudeau out of the way. It's great that we got Jagmeet out of the way. But, man, we need that enthusiasm that Pierre brings. He's the leader. He's the leader. And, no, looking forward to that day where the by-election gets called. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Smash a like on the stream. Subscribe to the channel. Put a W in the chat. I'll see you all same time tomorrow. Bye for now. How do I end this?